Welcome back. I've been asked to talk about my experiences on the subject of meditation. It's important to me because I believe meditation was a critical factor in my beating, or at least finding remission from a stage 4 aggressive cancer of the throat that was diagnosed back in March 2025. Now, I know chronic disease is not exactly a fun topic, but it's important when there are insights inside the story. When I was diagnosed last March, with the help of a friend, I used meditation to support myself through all the fear and the stress that comes with serious disease. In my case, it was the fear of what was the most likely next step, a surgery called a laryngectomy, a surgery my doctors described as a mutilation. The dread of that outcome was a powerful motivation for me to directly confront both the mental and physical challenges I was facing. I had no other options and nothing to lose. So I launched into a daily meditation, using it to direct positive energy to where I thought the body needed it most. I'd heard a lot about the power of positive thinking, and now I honestly believe it works. I know this will sound crazy to some people, but I believe I was actually healing myself. People have been curious about that since I talked about it in the first episode, way back in October. Now, that was by no means a typical meditation for me, but it did remind me how some remarkable insights can sometimes emerge when you are in such a deep meditative state. On that particular night, my meditation was interrupted by the arrival of a tiny object floating strangely towards me through the dark. I was struggling to see it. Eventually, the object came into focus and it said, "Is this life enough?" That was the moment when everything changed for me. And I have kept that message close at hand ever since. You might notice lots of these in locations around the workshop. I've thought about it a lot, and it actually fills me with energy. And I use it to remind myself that enough is simply a resting place ahead of your next great adventure. It became a process for me of finding a new purpose. And here we are. The net result is Gary's in the shed. And as that was happening, I was undergoing intensive treatment, including 3 sessions of chemotherapy, a cocktail of 3 different chemicals, pretty much round the clock, followed by 33 days of radiotherapy. Since then, I have, of course, undergone a lot of tests, including contrast MRI and PET scans, and I'm very happy to say it's all clear. Where there was once a stage 4 cancer, there's nothing there. And no more tests until November, much later in the year. So let me explain the role of meditation in all of that and how I believe it has worked for me over the past 12 months. I believe the process of meditation is all about finding peace. And I don't mean peace and quiet as in the silence idea, but it's more about finding peace within ourselves. That's the most powerful peace you can have. I think a lot of sadness and anxiety are driven by all of us paying too much attention to the noise inside our minds. And quite frankly, the problem is also thinking just too much about ourselves. And I found a really effective way of managing this. I would call it acknowledging my thoughts. Now, it's not about erasing those thoughts or trying to control them or trying to analyze them in any way. They are simply being acknowledged. As I explained back in episode 1, when I meditate, as a thought starts coming into my head, it drifts across my mind in a box, in my field of vision. So, which is a strange idea, field of vision, when you're in meditation with your eyes closed. Anyway, as a thought enters, it sits in its own space. It's actually shaped a little bit like a TV screen and travels slowly across from right to left. I don't engage with it. I just know it's there. I recognize it and let it go. I let it go in order to get beyond it. Here's the trick. My thoughts start to slow down and they literally become fewer and far between. That is when I can successfully navigate between and through that field of screens, slip between the thoughts, out there in the blackness beyond. You see, that's the ultimate destination. That's where peace is. In this space, it feels like I'm the real unfiltered me, leaving behind the ego and all the anxiety. It's a place where I have unlocked my powerful sense of gratitude and humility. It's not a religious thing, but it's quite like being close to something approximating God, and a moment to be deeply thankful. This is peace. During the day, it was almost impossible to escape all the fear and the anxiety about the disease. But when I took myself beyond my thoughts, I was able to stay in the moment and stay in that place of peace. Someone asked me recently, how does meditation coexist with faith and prayer? Well, I look at it this way. In meditation, we are looking for our true selves within ourselves. No one else can do that. Process of finding out who we really are. Prayer, on the other hand, is reaching out to the universe through God. In church, we go to our knees to pray alongside fellow believers as part of a community, openly, sharing. And for me, that is a very powerful expression of humility. And with that, a sense of never being alone. So meditation and prayer, well, they do connect and they do overlap sometimes, but I think they offer two very simple but very different things, fundamental things for life: peace within and peace with the world. And what naturally follows is meaning and purpose in life. For me, meditation wouldn't work without a critical step that I've learned, and that is to learn how to observe your thoughts. If you remember earlier, I said it's all about acknowledging and observing your thoughts. Because if you can observe your thoughts, you cannot be your thoughts. It took me a little while to grasp this idea. You see, the observer can never be the observed. Therefore, if you can observe your thoughts, and yes, you can, you are not your thoughts. Your thoughts are not who you are. Sounds good, eh? Well, by understanding this, I could liberate myself from being overwhelmed by the random noise in my head, all of those thoughts that plague us, in unimportant things, things that we can't change, things we can't influence, but seem to nag at us in our minds all the time. I learned this from a remarkable thinker called Eckhart Tolle, who wrote a book called The Power of Now back in 2004. Without question, one of the most influential books of my life. A New York Times bestseller, the book has since sold 16 million copies, more than a few of those mine. Every bedroom in this house has a copy of that book. As the title suggests, a big focus of the book is learning to be present in the moment. It was a powerful message when the book was published 22 years ago. But think how more relevant it is today, given all of our distractions, tearing us away from cherishing this moment. Distractions like videos and social media and the internet and YouTube and Gary's in the Shed, of course. All distractions, really. The Power of Now argues there is no point in being obsessed or distracted by either the past or the future, because neither actually exist except as thoughts. And as you know, you can observe those. And as you know, those thoughts are therefore not who you are. The past, at best, is just a random collection of poorly recalled memories, often loaded with regret and guilt. And the future doesn't exist either, because it never gets here, but still somehow able to inflict on us a whole lot of self-doubt, anxiety, and fear. So, 3 things to remember. First, learn to observe your thoughts. Accept that you are not your thoughts. And learn to spend at least part of your life in the now, in the moment, and love it. Now, if The Power of Now, the book, feels like a little too much, just take a look at a couple of Eckhart Tolle's video lectures online. You'll love him. It's not only educational, but it's enlightening and good fun too. Here's a favourite Eckhart quote of mine. The primary cause of unhappiness is never the situation, but your thoughts about it. It's a really profound insight, which we should all remember. So good luck acknowledging your thoughts, navigating beyond them, and finding peace. I would actually encourage everyone to practice meditation, or at least try it. Now, it doesn't work for everyone, but you should find someone to help you and at least give it a go. I was very lucky. I had a friend to help me visualize my meditation. And in meditation, I have learned I can direct positive energy for my mind, my spirit, and for my body. Now, through the management of the disease, of course, I did suffer. Of course, not anywhere near as much as some of the people that I met in that journey. But as I suffered, I knew I was loved even more. Forever grateful, of course, to all the doctors and nurses who took care of me, and equally grateful to all of the people who were saying prayers for me and sending best wishes. And beyond all of that great work, I believe I was healing myself. It worked for me. And as I said before, there's nothing to lose.